to India and Ireland, round Africa and back again. We don't really need to know just where we'll go. Maybe Canada, then to Brazil, then through the Alpine foothills. All I really want to know is, can we go? Oh baby, can we go? Round and around the globe.
Welcome to Take Me With You, episode 149. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Cheryl. We are two well-traveled people who want to go everywhere.
But that's not going to happen. Instead, for the last couple of years, we've been traveling vicariously by inviting guests to share their unique travel stories with us.
It's been awesome, and our podcast has been all over the globe.
Now we're taking some time to revisit the Wish You Were Here segment of our show, where we each share travel attractions that we recommend.
This week's Wish You Were Here's are from the southern United States.
The southern portion of the U.S.
Yes.
And we've got, that covers quite a bit of area.
Yeah, and these are only from you and me.
Oh, that's
and
true.
So it's just from the part of the South that you or I have been to, which
Right.
means New Orleans and then the places you have been to.
That's right, because you honeymooned in New Orleans and so had all sorts of great experiences and things from there.
What's funny is that there are several, I think like 4 food places I talked about in New Orleans.
Yep.
And this is reminding me of our Italy Wish You Were Here episode and how you were saying it was funny that like I didn't really have a food one when I'm so into food. And I was like, well, Italy is the best restaurant. And New Orleans
Right.
was a very similar experience to that. But here's the difference, Ryan.
Okay.
I was using a smartphone in New Orleans and I was
Okay.
not using one in Italy.
What does
Which
that do?
means, well, I wasn't using GPS, which means I wasn't starring anything.
Oh.
And so I wasn't able to go back and be like, oh, I starred that restaurant that I went to. What was the name of it? I'm just like, I don't know. There was a restaurant in Venice and they had really good seafood spaghetti. But like, so there is a downside to not using a smartphone as much as I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have that data.
Now I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
I only remember hearing you talk about starring things before a trip. This sounds like you're starring things while on a trip.
Oh, absolutely. If I go to a restaurant on a trip and I like it, I star it like while I'm there or right afterwards. Because that way it's still kind of, if someone's like, hey, I'm going to New Orleans, where should I eat? Then I can pull up my map and still have those stars.
Those recommendations.
It's all
That's
about those
clever.
recommendations. I mean,
Yes.
which we've learned from this podcast. We have a very specific reason for us why we need those recommendations. But even I was just
Yes.
talking with a coworker yesterday about New Orleans, and she said she's a foodie and she might go. And I was like, and she was like, you got to tell me where to eat. And I was like, I will. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just send her this episode though. So there we go.
That's true. That's true. That could do it. Although, do you talk about every restaurant that you went to?
No,
I
no,
didn't
there's
think so.
more.
That's what I figured.
Yes.
And as I'm sure will shock you, none of my Wish You Were Here's are food related.
Well, you have a whiskey related one, which
True.
is very exciting for me.
I do. That is
Yeah.
true. That is true.
Yep. Well, enjoy New Orleans and the South. I don't know how to wrap these up.
I don't either.
All right. What about you, Ryan?
So I'm also going to do a domestic one. This one is in Florida. So Universal Studios. And I know that they have a Universal Studios in LA. I've never been there. But there's Universal Studios in Florida. But there's kind of like a 2 parts. There's the Universal Studios, but then they also have an additional part, which is called the Islands of Adventure. Ooh. And at least in Florida, that's where they now have their Harry Potter. That's one of the islands.
Harry Potter.
Now, I've not been there because it was a long time ago. It was 2004 when I was there. And Harry Potter, while it was the books were definitely popular. I don't remember when the movies started coming out or not. I think we had maybe had 1 or 2 movies by then, but definitely there was no Harry Potter Land yet. But one of the islands that I am a huge fan of and I loved and would strongly recommend is the Dr. Seuss Island.
Oh, Dr. Seuss.
It's amazing because it literally is like walking into a Dr. Seuss book, because all of the buildings, all of the streets, all of the signs, everything is in the Dr. Seuss style.
Oh, that's so magical.
It's really, really cool. And I mean, I'm a big Dr. Seuss fan. I don't know if necessarily buff is necessarily the word, but I enjoy a lot of things about Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of things there that I saw that I recognized. Some things that I think everybody would recognize. For example, the Lorax. So I got my picture next to the Lorax and the truffula trees. But even like some things like one of their like concessions place, it was Moose Juice and Goose Juice, which is from Hunches and Bunches. And so there were a lot of like little things like that, or like Sergeant Mulvaney from And to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street. And so he's there and you can like get your picture taken with him. And it's really, really fun and whimsical and just like it should be. And like you would expect with Dr. Seuss. And so if you have any enjoyment of Dr. Seuss at all, that right there, I mean, the rest of it is really cool too. Like the other islands. And of course now since Harry Potter Island is there, I'm assuming that that's also really cool. But definitely
Harry
like
Potter.
Dr. Seuss Island at Universal's Island of Adventure, very cool. I would definitely recommend it.
That's so fun. Can I add a detail, even though I haven't been there?
Sure.
Because one time you told me about it and you said that someone had trivia.
Oh, yeah.
Can you share about that?
Well, now I have to remember. Again, this was a long time ago. So yeah, there was someone who was doing, it was like a person, I don't know if he was dressed up as a character. I don't remember, but it was definitely somebody who worked there. And they were doing trivia questions, but I'm pretty sure it was about the Grinch. And arguably, the Grinch may be my favorite Dr. Seuss story. I love the Grinch. I know lots of things about the Grinch. And so there were a number of trivia questions that I knew and nobody else knew. Is that what you're wanting me to share?
Yes.
Because, yeah, it was like, oh, who's the person who does this? And I was like, oh, that. And actually, I think one of the guys I got his name wrong because I mixed 2 of them up. But then it was like, well, what else is he known for? I was like, oh, that's the guy who was Tony the Tiger for Frosted Flakes.
Oh, who sang the song? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I think I knew because I feel like my parents have some weird connection to that guy or something like that. But
And then like Boris Karloff is the one who reads the story, and he was like Dracula in like the old school like Dracula movies and so like there's all of these other connections and things that I just have learned over the years because I love Dr. Seuss and I love that. And so yeah, he was asking trivia and I don't know if I knew all of them, but I knew more than anybody else around me.
I'm guessing it was not designed for people to easily know all the answers.
Probably
so
not.
Maybe the guy was like, oh, we found a nerd here. Cool.
Yep.
Oh, wow. How fun. I need to go there. I wish I was there.
Well, someday.
How about you, Ryan?
Well, this is what I referenced earlier, Andy.
My surprise.
This is your surprise, and it fits in so many ways after hearing all of your stories and things.
Oh my gosh!
Because you're going to Florida.
Oh no! Yes,
You're going
I
to
am.
Florida. Now, you said you were going to Tampa, and this is just outside of Orlando, so you would have to make a little bit of a trip. But I'm sure you're familiar with most of the theme parks in Florida.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if you knew that Florida has Gatorland.
No, it does not.
It does. It
Oh
does.
my gosh!
It does. Yes.
Oh no!
Gatorland. So it is an alligator themed theme park. I'm looking at their website right now, and their little tagline is that they are the alligator capital of the world.
My heart is racing right now. Were there actual alligators there, or is it just the attractions?
Yes. Oh, no. There's lots of alligators there.
I'm taking my pulse. Are you serious? Like, just in cages, or like just walking around?
Well, a little bit of both. So they have, and yeah. Now, I have to say, I was there in 2004, and since I was there, they had a major fire. So they have had to...
Yeah. Fair.
They have had
I did not have anything to do with
a lot
that.
of reconstruction. So I don't know how many of the things from when I was there are still the case there now. But at the time I was there, you entered Gatorland by walking through a big, giant gator mouth.
Nope.
I mean, it was like bluish, so it looked like it was cartoon.
Does that help? I don't feel like that helps.
I mean, I don't know what to tell you with that. And so then you walk through, and they have like these boardwalks with like little pools where some of the smaller alligators would be. But you were like up high enough. Yeah, the small one. No, I'm serious. The small ones, because the big giant ones that they've like pulled out of people's yards.
No,
those ones are behind like glass. So like not just a fence, but there's like actual like glass.
Okay.
And then
you above? Like you could fall in? I don't like that you have to think about that.
I mean, you could fall in if you were like,
oh my gosh,
trying to. Like you could jump in, I guess. But it's not like an accidentally, oops, now I'm in a gator pit. Like it's not that sort of a thing.
Okay.
But you can buy, they sell hot dogs that you can then like rip into pieces and throw and feed the gators. And they will like, fight over them with each other. There was a guy who did gator wrestling. So you didn't get to wrestle the gators, but you could watch him like do the gator wrestling show.
Were they trained gators?
I don't know that you can train a gator.
Can you train a gator?
I don't know that you can. I'm not so sure
oh my gosh.
that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was definitely an experience. And looking at their website now, it looks like they've upgraded because it looks like they have the Screamin' Gator zip line.
No.
Yeah.
No. Do you zip line over alligators?
I think so. And then they also have the they have the Gator Gauntlet zip line as well. I'm not really sure what the difference is between those because again, those didn't exist when I was there before.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think in your next trip when you go to Tampa, you need to make a detour and you need to go visit Gatorland.
Face your fears.
Yeah, I feel like immersion therapy when it comes to alligators is probably not a great way of going.
Probably not. I mean, probably one of so I went with my my dad and my siblings when we went, and probably one of our favorite memories from Gatorland was a moment where we saw an individual that we dubbed Mr. Gatorland.
Oh
now,
my gosh.
he was a patron. He didn't work there as far as we knew. But picture when you hear Gatorland.
Yeah.
Think as stereotypical as you possibly can, the type of person you would expect to see there.
Okay.
And that's pretty much who we saw.
We're not trying to break any molds here. We're trying to stick with
No. And it is entirely possible that I have a photograph. So this was 2004. So this is before we have like, cell phone cameras that are decent or whatever. So we've got like little digital handheld, like point and shoot cameras. Definitely had my sister stand in between me and him so we could get a picture of him in the background.
Yep. Yes. That's genius.
Yep. Definitely did
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Yep.
Wow.
There you go. Wish you were here.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. But thanks for the invite.
Oh my goodness.
How about you, Ryan?
I am going to take us to Florida, specifically Tampa Bay, and to Busch Gardens theme park. And there is a very specific thing that you can do in Busch Gardens theme park called the Serengeti Safari.
Ooh.
So unlike your sister, I have not been to the actual Serengeti, but I have been on the Serengeti Safari at Busch Gardens in Tampa Bay, Florida. And it's really cool. So they put you in the back of a truck and you stand, and they have this really, really big area that they've laid out like the Serengeti, and they have the animals just free roaming, and they drive you around and you can watch just kind of what the animals are doing. And so it's kind of like a zoo, except bigger, and you're in it. You're in the exhibit, and it's just really cool. And one of the things you get to do is you get to feed giraffes from the truck. So you drive over to where the giraffes are, and then you can hold up whatever the leaves or whatever the food part is, and then their like tongue will come around and loop around it and pull it in, and they're right there, heads right there by you. It's really fun. It was a really cool experience, and you have to pay extra in order to do that. It's not included with just the entrance into the park, but it's still really, really fun. Although I would say this is not the same thing, but if you're going, the thing you might want to look into, Cheryl, and I would definitely recommend the Serengeti Safari, but they do also have the Penguin Insider Tour. So you might want to do that one.
Penguin Insider. Can I hug a penguin?
Well, what it says is, because I haven't done this one, go behind the scenes of Penguin Point and meet our penguins. I don't know if that means you can hug them.
Oh, but you can go. Oh, I want to go do that.
But I'll bet you'd get closer to them.
And this is at the same place as the Serengeti?
Yep. Are you familiar with Busch Gardens?
I feel like Tori talked about it on her episode with us.
Yeah. So it's like, kind of like Disneyland, but more, think more SeaWorld. It's like SeaWorld, except it's not sea animals, it's land animals.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a zoo, but it's made more like a theme park.
Okay.
So they have roller coasters and rides, but they also have a lot of animals and things like that you can see. So it's kind of a theme park zoo hybrid.
Nice. That sounds great.
Yes.
I'll go pet a penguin.
Okay.
That's what I took out of that. But that does sound good, because even like I remember that the Seattle Zoo, the Woodland Park Zoo, they had elephants for a long time. And then they ended up realizing that small of an area just was not good for the elephants and them to live.
Oh, is that why
life.
they got rid of the elephants?
And so they
well, good for them.
I know that zoos do I think they do a lot of like trading of animals. And so I don't remember exactly how it worked, but they found a zoo somewhere in the South that had a ton of land. And that's really what's good for elephants, is to have miles and miles of land. So I remember that was a good thing for them. So I'd imagine something like this is probably a lot closer to the animals' preferred way of living. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Well, and the weather, I think, is probably closer there than, say,
than
here in Seattle as well. So down in Florida,
Yeah.
warmer temperatures.
I think
Yeah.
you're right. Ryan.
Yeah, so mine is going to be domestic.
Okay.
So I'm going to recommend the Jack Daniel's Distillery tour.
Because you're so into whiskey.
I am so into whiskey.
That sounds like something I would enjoy.
Me too.
No,
I know.
it actually
I'm
was
so
super
confused.
awesome. So I have family that live in Alabama, and so I went out to visit them several years ago, and they're in Huntsville, which is in northern Alabama, and we were looking for some other fun thing to do while I was there, and they're like, hey, let's go up to the distillery. It's in Tennessee, so you could just drive up. I don't remember how far the drive, an hour, 2 hours, something like that. And so we drove up into Tennessee, and so it's in the town of Lynchburg.
Nice.
All
Good
right.
name.
Which is, now I don't remember if it's city or county, but it's dry. Which I didn't know I had never heard of that.
Huh.
So there are places in the country where it is illegal to sell alcohol.
Still?
Yes.
A lot in Utah.
Dry counties, dry cities. And so the irony is the city that Jack Daniel's is in, the distillery is in, is a dry county. I think maybe it's not the city, but maybe the entire county.
So can they not have a gift shop then?
So you can, there's some sort of like special dispensation that while you're on the distillery grounds, you can purchase, but they can't like even in and it's a tiny town. Lynchburg is like one road, main street, like 15, 20 buildings. That's the whole thing. Right. But they can't sell, they have all sorts of like memorabilia, but you can't actually buy alcohol there. So
I was really hoping you'd tell me it was like its own country or something like that.
No, I'm sorry. It's not that cool. But the tour was really interesting. Obviously, I'm like a science person. Mm-hmm. So while I don't necessarily care about the alcohol itself, the process is really cool. Mm. And so they take you through and show you all of these different, they're big vats, and they talk about the whole thing. And at least our tour guide had a very strong Southern accent, which I think added to the experience.
That's great.
And then we didn't do this because it was already booked. And so it was booked ahead of time. But you can eat at Miss Mary Bobo's boarding house and restaurant.
Yeah.
Which is apparently a whole big deal. They do this big, like, I think Southern style meal, big giant table with everybody's at the same table. It's this whole big experience, which would be really fun. You just want to make your reservations ahead of time. And we did go look at it because, I mean, it's Miss Mary Bobo.
How could you not?
Right? So
that's great.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fun little town that feels like you're back in time, maybe by 100 years.
Nice.
And again, the tour is really fun. The whole, like, the grounds are beautiful. There's a beautiful, like, main kind of house area, building, visitor center thing. And it's just really cool. It's out in the middle of nowhere, but it's cool.
Yeah. How about you, Ryan?
I am going to talk about the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Yeah. So I have family that lives out there. And so I went out to visit them several years ago, and they took me out to this, I guess technically museum, but it's basically a history of space exploration museum.
Oh, wow.
Because Huntsville is a big aerospace city. So there's lots of stuff that happens there. And so one of the things, there's lots of cool stuff. They've got a space shuttle there. They've got lots of different rockets. They have traveling exhibitions. They have a planetarium. It's kind of like the people who are familiar with sort of the Seattle area, the Museum of Flight that's in the greater Seattle area, except it's mostly space focused. So the Museum of Flight has planes and all that stuff, and it has a space section, whereas this one is much more all space focused. But one of the coolest things, in my opinion, at the Space and Rocket Center is they have what they call the Saturn V Hall, which the Saturn V rocket was the big giant rocket that launched the capsules up to the moon. And the hall is big and huge and super, super long. And it's one of the 3, I think, places where there is still a full Saturn rocket, and it's on its side, and they have it kind of spaced out and open so you can see in the different segments. And it's I don't remember if it's like it's not suspended from the ceiling per se, but it's raised up a little bit. So you're kind of looking up at it. And it is so hard to describe how huge that rocket is. Like, you stand on one end of the hall and you look down and it just keeps going. And it's huge in that it's big around, but it's also was incredibly tall when it would have been standing up and not on its side. So it's very, very cool. So if you have any interest in space or space exploration or space travel, or even just the history of sort of the space race and what that looked like, it's a really cool place to go if you happen to be in Huntsville, Alabama.
Yeah, that's super random, but super interesting. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man. A Ryan approved museum, always a good thing. So how does it compare? Is it similar to like experiencing the redwoods, where you're like, it's hard to understand and capture how large this thing is?
I think so. Yeah. But it's different in that there's just one, right? The redwoods, you've got these big giant trees all around. And obviously some of the trees are bigger than others, but here it's just this one thing. And also I honestly don't know which one's more impressive because because the redwoods are living things that occur naturally, and yet they're huge. But then the Saturn V rocket is the exact opposite of that. It's completely man-made and manufactured, and yet it's huge and also still impressive, but for all the opposite reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, it's cool.
That's interesting.
And it's sciencey and spacey, so it makes me excited.
And it's sciencey and spacey.
All right, Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here?
Mine is in New Orleans. One of the places that I went to have some lunch at when I was there in December was a po' boy bar.
A po' boy bar?
Well, po' boy and bar, I guess is what it says. But it's a restaurant, essentially. But I don't know why I called it that. And I'm looking at the name of it, and I haven't heard it pronounced, but Domilise's Po' Boy and Bar. It was featured on a show. Who's the guy with the spiky, crazy hair that does the food shows?
Guy Fieri.
He featured it one time, and he ate there, and so they needed to tell us that when we were there as well. So I was like, well, that's cool. I'm happy for them that they got featured on a show. But yeah, so it was, I had quite the long list of foods that I wanted to try when I was in New Orleans, because it's a pretty long list of like, you have to have this and this and this. And po' boys is one of them. And so,
and that's a sandwich, yes?
It's a sandwich. It's like a sub sandwich, essentially. But yeah, and there's all sorts of different like toppings you can get. And so they have like meatball ones or, I don't know, just like roast beef ones, different things like that. But shrimp is very common, or catfish or oyster. So like some sort of seafood is pretty common. I had one that was like a half shrimp, half oysters one that was one they recommended. And then some of them have like some sort of a sauce on top of them as well. But yeah, it's just like a really good sub sandwich is how I would describe it. And yeah, like usually French bread, I think, is what they use for those. It was wonderful. And then Daryl what did he get? He got some other sort of like a burger or something that he was just raving about. He loved it a lot. And so really good food, very unassuming place, and kind of a fun area of town. So
cool.
That's where you should go.
That sounds so yummy. I wish I wasn't gluten-free.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have some special bread I can put.
I mean, more and more restaurants are accommodating to that. Even like several years ago, I was in Italy and they had gluten-free pasta. And I was like, oh my goodness, even Italy's on board with gluten-free.
Oh yeah, I've seen it all over Europe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not all over Europe, but in multiple places in Europe. I've seen stuff like that.
I just love it in Spanish because then it's sin gluten, which looks like sin gluten. And then it looks like gluten is a sin. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, that's true.
Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here this week?
I've really been missing restaurants and eating out. And so I want to talk about a restaurant that I went to in New Orleans called Brennan's.
All right.
So I did share about this when I talked about my trip to New Orleans. So it's a bit of a repeat, but I really don't care.
It's your podcast.
Fair. So Brennan's is pretty fancy as far as like it's a nicer, more expensive restaurant. The inside is kind of elaborate, like really like ornate walls and design and everything. And Daryl and I went there for dessert and drinks, specifically because Brennan's is the birthplace of Bananas Foster.
Oh, that's right.
Yes. And your waiter might look and sound a little bit like Severus Snape too. At least that was my experience, which I really loved a lot. And now Daryl likes to say, "Your Bananas Foster, Mrs. Webster." So that's pretty fun. But yeah, that's truly the origin of Bananas Foster. And so that's something that they specialize in. They will make it for you at your table and tell you the history of it as they are making it for you and setting it on fire in front of you, which is it's like a travel show. If you're like, Bananas Foster originated because, and so the story is that there was this, shoot, now I'm not remembering as much. I'll have to go back and listen to my podcast, I guess. But there was this woman who I believe is a woman working there, and they had to make some new dessert for some reason. And there was I'm missing all the important details.
Yep. This is real great story.
But there was someone that was saying, really believed that ice cream did not belong in fine dining. So her challenge was to make a fancy dessert that had ice cream in it that was fine dining, and made Bananas Foster and included ice cream. And so it's fun to go there. You have to order it for at least 2 people. So, and I don't like bananas. So of course I tried it because at the birthplace of Bananas Foster, I'm going to try it. And it was kind of best case scenario for me with bananas, but obviously I didn't like it. So I ordered a different dessert, and then Daryl got 2 Bananas Foster. So that was very fun. But my recommendation is go and sit in the lounge because the tables are further apart. You don't need a reservation. It's much more chill there. I walked through the main dining area, and it was beautiful, and it was bustling and really crowded. And so I think it was nicer and quieter, and we didn't make reservations or anything sitting in the lounge. And it was fun to just go for dessert and drinks if you don't want to spend as much either. But go to Brennan's and eat the Bananas Foster and enjoy.
And if you would like to hear the actual story back when Cheryl remembered it, that would be episode 62.
Thank you. That's so funny because I have a pretty good memory, and yet some of those details are just lost.
Well, you've been inside for a long time.
Yeah, that's true. My brain is turning to mush.
Turning to bananas?
Oh, gross.
So, Cheryl, what would you like to do for your Wish You Were Here today?
I want to share about a restaurant/shop in New Orleans that I went to on my honeymoon. And, we had a lot of good food from a lot of great restaurants there. This food was not your typical New Orleans food.
Okay.
But boy, was it good. You would love it.
Okay. Is it baked?
No, but it's cheese.
Oh, okay.
It is called St. James Cheese Company, and we went to the Warehouse District location. I guess they have 2 locations. And it was pretty close to where we were staying in the French Quarter. And it looks just like a cheese shop. So with display cases of all these types of cheese and little shelves with other various things you can get just purchase there. And then it also kind of just looks like a coffee shop because you could order various coffees there. But they have a menu, and it is a good menu.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send you their menu here. There you go. Okay. Check out their menu.
Oh, these are all just cheeses.
These are sandwiches. And then the names, most of the names of their sandwiches are just types of cheeses.
Oh, interesting.
But they're just such good sandwiches.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness. The people next to us got the mac and cheese, and I wanted to drool over their mac and cheese, but I thought it would be rude.
Cheryl, I'm looking at the menu right now. It's called the Cheesemonger's Mac and Cheese.
Yes. Don't worry. It's served with a small green salad, so you're fine.
Jeez Louise.
So I got the Lomo Bocadillo. It's the bottom of all of the sandwiches on that page.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an open-faced sandwich, and it had manchego on it and arugula, and then it was topped with a fried egg, and it was amazing. The bread was it was so good. I just was so happy. But it was like the hardest thing ever to order. Actually, I think Daryl ordered for me because I wanted to get one of everything. Yeah, because sure everything on that menu was just so good. They also just like, you can get like a cheese and charcuterie board. It looks like they have a good happy hour where they do like cheese boards for less. Yeah, if you're in New Orleans, take a break from the gumbo and go to St. J's Cheese Company because it is so good. So that's my wish you were here.
Cheryl, what would you like to do for your wish you were here?
Today, I'm going to talk about the City Putt Miniature Golf Course in New Orleans. So, I love mini golf. I've never actually played golf, but mini golf is very fun, and I love a cheesy theme, so that works really nicely. But growing up, my family, we did a trip at least one a year. We traveled a fair amount, and it was pretty frequent that at some point on the trip, we would just find some local mini golf place and go mini golfing. And my sisters and I have even done that in our adult years a couple times. And so I went to New Orleans on my honeymoon, and so obviously we wanted a way more chill trip with that. And I really wanted to visit their city park because it's pretty large. Like if you look at New Orleans, you could see this big green space on the map. And I found out that they had mini golf there. So we went mini golfing, and it was so fun. And we took the trolley there, and it was finally when I made it on a trolley because some things were under construction. So they just had buses, which is not nearly as fun as a trolley. But the park is gorgeous. So it's fun because it's a fun mini golf place. They have two courses. One is Louisiana themed and one is New Orleans themed. And we did both. So one's more about like the bayou and things like that. And then one's more about jazz. And you know, with most mini golf, it's a pretty loose theme, but it was adorable. But then it's fun to be able to visit the park as you go there. So I would say it's a good little chill vacation thing to do if you're in New Orleans.
Cheryl, what about you?
I would like to share about a thing I did on my honeymoon when I was in New Orleans. We went on the paddle wheeler Creole Queen. So it is a paddle wheel boat that goes on the river. So a river boat. And they offer different cruises. We went on the Creole Queen. That is a tongue twister. Creole Queen Jazz Cruise. And that is a nighttime cruise. And they have a jazz band there. And then you can get a ticket with or without dinner. Of course, we got dinner. And they have a buffet of like all of the local food that you need to try, which is always very fun for me because like you, Cameron, I want to try that local food, but you go somewhere like New Orleans and it's like, this is a long list of local food I need to try. And so it's really fun being able to try bites of a lot of things buffets, in one meal.
So good.
Yeah. And so, but it's so fun. It is so fun to see New Orleans on the river. I mean, like any city on a river, it's really fun to like get out on a boat and see it on a river. And at nighttime, it was gorgeous. And we were there in December at nighttime, great temperature. And so, and it's a kind of a smallish boat. So it was like the dining room was not enormous and it was very chill there too. Like they didn't have much of like a program or anything, which was nice just to like hang out on a boat, listen to music, get a drink, have food. You could just go up on the deck whenever. But they offer some other cruises too. They have a historic cruise, which I think has like a narrator and they talk about the history of the place. They have a Christmas Eve cruise, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day brunch, 4th of July, all sorts of ones. It was great. I loved it. I think it was one of the highlights of our trip. So I would highly recommend it if you were in New Orleans.
Very cool. Food and jazz. What more can you want?
Yeah, exactly.
Cheryl, what would you like to do for your wish you were here today?
I want to talk about food.
I'm so surprised.
I mean, I always want to talk about food. But I'm going to talk about a restaurant that is in New Orleans that I went to almost a year ago now on my honeymoon. And I think it was on the last night. And it's called Evangeline. And they have really good food. But the
Wait,
really
you're not going
cool
to share
thing-
about a restaurant that has really poor food?
Oh. You know what? Fair point. And they have lots of like the classic New Orleans dishes that you would expect. And we had like fried catfish and okra and, different things like that there. They have very fun cocktails. So that was great. But the super fun thing about this restaurant is it's like on this street with all these little restaurants, so they're just like all these buildings. I mean, they're like all connected, right? And so there's just, you walk in this little restaurant, but they have outdoor seating in the back. And it's this little like walled courtyard area with lights hanging up. And it's just like, you can see the stars and it's good weather there. So I was there in December, but like wearing a sleeveless dress in the evening. And it's all busy and loud on the street. And then you go back there and it's super quiet. And so it's like a fun little like secret outdoor eating spot, which was very fun. And Daryl picked it out, and he always picks out good food places. He's good at research. I think that's what it is. And so he found this restaurant. He didn't even know about their courtyard though. And so we go there and they're like, "Do you want to sit outside?" And I was looking at the sidewalk and I was kind of thinking like, I don't even see tables out there. But I was like, yes. I mean, I do want to sit outside all the time. And so then he like took us in the back and it was this really cool courtyard. So anyway, go to Evangeline. It's fantastic. And eat some fried okra and tell me all about it.
Love that.
Perfect. Next time I'm in New Orleans.
Yep, for sure.
Yes.
Who knows when that'll be.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, it was. We would love it if you would follow us on social media. We are at Timwe Podcast. That's at TMWY for Take Me With You Podcast. We are on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter.
You can also email us at timwepodcast@gmail.com. Tell us, what are your wish you were here's for this location?
We would love to hear that. You can also call us and leave us a voicemail at 406-763-8699. Or if it's easier to remember, 406-POD-TIMWE. We would love it if you would rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about this episode on your social media.
As always, thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the awesome artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. And thank you to Erica Corbin for the use of her song Round the Globe. You can listen to Erica's music wherever music is sold or streamed.
That's all we have for this episode, so until next time, remember to take me with you.
Take me with you!
Can we get a sailboat chasing down the sunset as we float round and round the globe? Salty air and balmy nights, guided only by the lights above, and light little love. Oh, the world is out there waiting to explore, and all our troubles here want them to be ignored. Oh, let's go to India and I